I'm going to go ahead and preface the video with a casual note that I actually really like Uncle Dane's videos, streams, and just his general personality. He's a great person, and I'd like to think of him as at least somewhat of a friend, despite not knowing him too long at this point. This certainly isn't a video knocking him in any way, in the same way it's not knocking you about your personal opinions about matchmaking or just game modes in general in Team Fortress 2. I figured I'd go ahead and post a thought-out reply, though, from the perspective of a Sixes-oriented video game player, to cover a lot of the misconceptions that a lot of people have about the Sixes community and about the format. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible, but I know it won't be too short. You can speed up the video by going to the speed options in the settings. Speed it up to 1.25 or 1.5 or something. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start off by saying that I like all types of TF2. I play pubs, I play competitive 6v6, I've played Highlander, I've tried 4v4, I've tried 5v5 Prolander, I've tried Arena Respawn, I've tried jump maps, different pub mods like Smash and Dodgeball. I enjoy surfing, jumping. I can honestly say that I enjoy playing all 9 classes to varying degrees, but I enjoy all 9 of them, and I've played with just about every weapon in the game, and I've enjoyed all of them. And I can say that I appreciate that TF2 is a diverse game, and that's the thing that makes TF2 so unique and amazing. And I just want to say that to make sure that you don't think that I'm just the small-minded, like, 6v6 master race enabler. I love everything in TF2. That said, I have played competitive 6v6 since mid-late 2012-ish, and I've played competitive Highlander since 2013, on and off, but I have played it. I think both of these mainstream formats, these are the kind of 2 big formats, I think both of these have their own positives and negatives, and I'd recommend, if you haven't played them and you're looking into getting into competitive, play both of them, see which one you like more. All that said, though, I really do think 6v6 is by far the more superior format. I believe very strongly that Valve knows what the heck they're doing with the matchmaking thing, considering that 2 of the top 4 esports are titles that they own. I would go so far as to say that 6v6 is objectively the better format. This isn't just something that I'm pulling out of, like, my butt. Like, I have done extensive research on all the formats of competitive TF2 from the upcoming for the upcoming documentary that I'm working on, and even, like, aside from that, just playing, reviewing, and just watching competitive TF2 for about 3 years now. Like, it's just like a really developed opinion that I have, and it's not like I'm trying to be, like, you know, the god of formats or whatever, but it is like an opinion that I have been developing since I started playing a long time ago. There are a lot of reasons that I think 6v6 is the superior format, both for matchmaking and just in general, but there's no way I can get all of these thoughts into a video that is a reasonable amount of time, like a length that is reasonable for you to watch. Like, so I'm going to try to just cover the basics. In this video, I'm going to talk about a few big rumors that have kind of circulated about competitive 6v6, and a few reasons why 6v6 has been the competitive powerhouse of a format all the way since 2007. Before I get into the rumors, I'm going to go ahead and mention that most competitive players play around 4 major advantages and disadvantages. These are called different things, but they all mean the same thing. So these 4 advantages and disadvantages are Uber, health, positioning, and I clump movement into positioning, as well as players alive, and also I clump spawn times into that. So those are like the 4 big advantages and disadvantages that you play around in competitive TF2, and that'll make. I'm saying that because it'll make sense later when I bring it back up. Rumor number 1 is that 6v6's whitelist is a result of players' inability to counter weapons. My response to that is that I've heard this sentence or a variance on this sentence ever since I started playing Sixes. Honestly, it's understandable why somebody would think this, and that's certainly what it looks like at face value if you haven't actually, like, looked at the whitelists. But I'm gonna go ahead and show the whitelists. all of the items on the whitelist, or all of the items not on the whitelist, do one of three things. They cripple the meta, which means they force you to play with that weapon. You can't play with a different weapon. They mess up one of the 4 basic advantages and disadvantages that I mentioned just a little bit ago. And they are just indisputably broken weapons. Either they're just stupid overpowered, like the current lock and load is, or they're just glitched and broken. But yeah, the color code that you see on the screen is purple for just broken weapon, orange for it messes up an advantage that is crucial to the game, and blue are the weapons that cripple the meta. I'd also like to make a quick note that the whitelist and blacklist in ESEA at least is not as restrictive as a lot of people just assume it to be. I feel like a lot of the people that say whitelist is bad just haven't looked at the whitelist. There's 71 weapons, at least I counted. It's probably plus or minus a few from that. There's 71 weapons allowed in ESEA, not including reskins, and there are actually only 46, plus or minus a few again, that are actually banned in ESEA. I can justify all but 2 of these bans, just easily. And the two bans that I can't that I haven't put a mark on are just things that I feel like could potentially be decent, but just have been voted out by the community. It's also worth noting that 6v6 has recently seen a big push to broaden its whitelist, even more than it is right now. And in the past few months, a lot of questionable weapons have been added to the whitelist over in Europe, and they're just experimenting how it plays. Regardless of all of this, though, whitelists aren't looking like they're going to be a thing in the in-game lobby system. Valve's main goal, it looks like, with the lobby system at least, is to work on balancing stuff through the data that they get through matchmaking. So whitelist is really kind of a non-issue in the world of in-game matchmaking. Rumor number 2 is that 6's class usage is more restrictive than Highlander. And my response to that would be the argument could actually be made that 6v6 has more class diversity than Highlander does. And hold on, before you get confused or angry, in Highlander each player has his or her own class that they stay on the entire game. They're not allowed to. They're allowed to switch loadouts to counter different situations. But for example, the spy player on a team will play spy the entire time in every game that team plays. Obviously, each class gets 1/9 of the representation, just evenly, but that doesn't represent what a pub game is at all. Almost never in a pub game will you see a perfect ratio of, 1 to 8 of each class or whatever, 1 to 1 to 1, because some classes are inherently better classes. And Valve mentioned this to the TF2 people that went up to the headquarters to talk about matchmaking. Not every class is meant to be as powerful or weak as the other ones. That was never an intention in the game. Moving on to rumor number 3, though. People won't like to play 6v6 because they realize that their mains are situational. So I've heard this. My response to this would be to me, it's pretty weird that anybody would expect to play a class like Spy full-time in a competitive format. I mean, obviously, many people will try to play it, and it won't work, and they'll be like, oh, I guess that makes sense. For a moment, I'd like people to consider the 5 class roles that aren't utilized as defaults in 6v6 play. So these are the Pyro, Heavy, Engineer, Sniper, and Spy. The Pyro is a very close range class with very limited movement and a small damage output. Heavy is a very, very slow tank class with terrible movement and a very small amount of versatility. The Engineer is a class that I could talk about for a while. Without its broken unlocks, which I'll probably get to in another video, it's a class that's a turtler. With relatively slow movement and situational damage output. As a side note, I really want to talk about how I like the NG class, and I'm thinking about it. I'll definitely make another video. I think that Valve really dropped the bomb on NG. by either making him the most boring class or the most broken class. I'll definitely make a video about that. I'll probably add an annotation to this one and work on it after I finish this one. But moving on, Sniper's a pick class with burst damage output, but a very small ability to hold anything. So like having him on your defense is basically playing 5v6 unless he hits a good shot. And then Spy is just, it's a downgrade. It's a pick class that literally makes your team 6v5 up until the very moment the Spy is getting a pick. And it's a very risky play, which is why it's not utilized as a default. Some people would argue that these things are issues with the 6v6 format, but personally I would say that these are things that make the format shine. The utilization of the 4 fastest, most powerful classes as a default, with off classes obviously to counteract disadvantages and advantages, I mean, that's not something that sets 6v6 apart from TF2. It's something that is distinctly TF2. Anyways, moving on to rumor number 4. 6v6 is a generic shooter akin to CSGO or Call of Duty. And my response is that, I hear this one a lot on Reddit and from friends and acquaintances that play primarily Highlander. And I don't think it's a really fair comparison. The interclass balance of the classes is still there. Like, just because 6v6 doesn't, like, shoehorn all 9 classes into play consistently every single moment, that doesn't mean that it just completely removes the class balance from TF2. It doesn't remove TF2 from what it is. But yeah, transitioning out of rumors and into, like, reasons for 6v6 matchmaking, I'd like to point towards one thing that bothers me, I'd like to point towards the thing that bothers me most about Highlander as a format and as a community right now. I don't want to say that this is everyone in the Highlander community, but it is certainly a large part. Defending your game mode by championing it as real TF2, or how TF2 is meant to be played, or how pubbers want to play TF2, like, that's okay if you want to do that, if those statements were true, but they're not. So, for example, Highlander doesn't, like, allow all of the weapons that are in the game. Like, you can't, on one moment, be talking about how bad blacklists are and then turn around and blacklist items. It's like you can do one or the other. I personally enjoy Highlander with no whitelists, just utilizing all of the quote-unquote broken weapons. Like, I think that's what makes Highlander fun. You can't say that it's real TF2 if Highlander isn't played on stock maps. I don't see how you could be an advocate for forcing one part of the game to be similar with quote-unquote the real game, and then play on maps that no one outside of Highlander has ever heard of. So I'm talking like Borneo, Asheville, Ramjam, various _pro maps, and I mean, stuff like that. So the classes are only half the game. By forcing altered maps and new maps onto people, you're doing the same disservice that you think Sixes is doing by not letting people use their Calmangler 6000 or whatever. And then the third point is that if the players didn't have to say all these things, I would believe it. If Highlander players didn't have to say that they feel like 6v6 is like a pompous echo chamber of a format, like constantly becoming less inclusive, then I would think about it. If 6v6 really was a self-rewarding scout soldier demo medic hugfest that like some players claim it to be, it would be much more blatant. and the truth is that it's not. The fact of the matter is that 6v6 is trying everything it can to become as close to pub TF2 as it can without becoming unfun. There's been a really large push for a broader whitelist in 6v6, and while this is going on, Highlander's constantly rotating out custom maps that, you know, nobody's ever played before, and at the same time blacklisting items that were whitelisted when I was playing. But before I go further in this video, I want to stop for a moment and talk about why I really like Highlander. Highlander's working well, doing what the community fabricated it to be. It's a slightly more casual, less intimidating version of competitive TF2 that could be either where players go to play less seriously or with friends. And it's a great avenue to get people into 6v6, which is actually what Highlander was originally created for. the 6v6 players that just dump on Highlander are typically mid-level UGC players that will never have the patience or drive to improve past that, looking desperately for something to make fun of so they can feel like they're not the worst gamers on the planet for getting 2-digit DPM on demo for the past 5 seasons in Steel Red. But the people that are actually good, or at least the people that are decent or improving at 6v6, do not blindly hate Highlander. They may dislike the format because of personal reasons, or for a reason that I listed above, or for the fact that the format accepts, like, several inherently broken unlocks, or maybe just because it didn't click for them. But the reasons they dislike Highlander are reasons. They're not, no, like, good player has ever disliked Highlander because it was a hip thing to do, or because they, like, had a deep down feeling that, like, of inferiority to the format. Like, that's just not true. Pushing from there, though, I'm going to start talking about the reasons 6v6 is great for in-game lobbies. Reason number 1 for 6v6 in-game lobbies is determining class balance as well as weapon balance. The TF2 seems very serious when they say that they want to rebalance things based on stats of matchmaking. Because of this, it's important not only for them to have information on what unlocks people use, but also on what classes people use the most. Reasons for 6v6 number 2. Game size. It's no mystery that getting 18 players into a server to play games will be a huge hurdle to jump over. People that already play Dota and Counter-Strike that are watching this, like games with considerably larger player bases, especially matchmaking player bases, know that it can take quite some time to get matched to a balanced game with even just 5 people on the team. Doubling that number, like nearly doubling that number in a game with a smaller player base, could lead to some really long queue times, as well as potentially less balanced games. Reason number 3 for 6v6 is that your class actually is included. Personally, I'll be maining Gunslinger, Widowmaking, NG in in-game matchmaking. Like, Lord knows, like, I won't be trying to play, like, Soldier against an enemy team consisting of a Pyro, Heavy, Vaccinator, Medic, like short-circuiting NG and like charging Demo. Like, the thing about not having a whitelist is that we have no clue what the standard lineup will be, or even if there will be a standard lineup. Reason number 4 for 6v6 is because history. I mentioned earlier that 6v6 has been played since 2007. That's not an exaggeration. That's true. At Insomnia 32, TF2 6v6 made it on the main stage a month after the game's release. Parting ways with a format that has had one of the longest esports histories for a game of its size would be not only an unwise decision, but also a short-sighted one. Reason for 6v6 number 5 is because esports. In the long run, it's not feasible for an event or sponsor to back a team of 9 players over a team of 6 players. Obviously, it's a pipe dream that TF2 becomes an esport in today's context of tens of millions of dollars in prize pots, but for TF2 to get sponsors, small lands, and decent prize pots, pushing any game more than 6 players per team is just, it's not going to be good for the scene. Reasons for 6v6 number 6 is because Overwatch. I think that Muselk put it best when talking after the initial announcement of matchmaking. It seems pretty blatant, honestly, and that in at least part, TF2's matchmaking is a response to Blizzard's upcoming Overwatch, a 6v6 competitive game. If this is just a chance, like if this is just a chance happening, it's incredible timing, but I don't think that it is. I think that it is at least in part influencing Valve's decisions right now. And reason for 6v6 number 7 is because Valve. I think Valve is known for making small mistakes here and there, but they just about always hit the mark with large decisions like this one, and I'm assuming that there is a whole list of reasons they have for supporting 6v6 outside of what I listed here. I generally trust Valve, and I would be backing whatever they plan to do format-wise. When I first heard that there was going to be matchmaking, like when I heard that was confirmed, I hadn't heard that it was 6s yet, and I figured there was no way it was going to be 6s, but Valve picked it. It's the best choice for them. And in closing, I want you guys to remember that I really do enjoy TF2, like all types of TF2. I really don't want to be that guy that just tries to dunk on everything that isn't 6v6. I've already made like an hour-long video talking about why 6v6 alternatives like Arena Respawn 5v5 and just the standard 4v4 formats are just not great things. And I've now made a video that's probably going to be pushing 20 minutes long about flaws in Highlander in the context of matchmaking. I don't know. I've always said this. Enjoy TF2 like how you want to, but please don't badmouth formats that you have limited knowledge or experience with. Please don't talk about 6v6 players as if we're like one person, like if we don't like as if we don't have individual opinions on things. Misinforming the non-competitive community by like passing 6v6 players off as nepotistical, like elitists, like that's not okay. That's not who we are. And if you made it all the way through this video, please feel free to post your opinion in the comments section. I'll be responding to reasonable criticism, both my video and my opinions on the topic. Don't expect me to respond to anything that isn't well thought out, though. But I'll try my best to respond to as much as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later with either another video that I make or the next time I stream. Thanks for watching, guys.